Hello, happy friends on YouTube. How's it going? All right, I am back because it's Monday. Happy Monday. I always say that to my students in class. Nobody appreciates it because it's Monday. I kind of like Mondays. I like restarting my system and getting my cycle going and having a plan and stuff like that. It might fall apart by Wednesday, but I like doing it. So that's where we're at. All right, so my plan for this week is to talk mostly about teaching yourself stuff by reading, because it is one of those fancy skills that's actually shockingly difficult to master. And I know, because I honestly read a lot, and I read a lot of like nonfiction stuff I want to know, things I want to pick up. And let's be real about most of the books I've read, I have a vague recollection of them, and they're sitting somewhere in my Kindle if I need them, but I don't remember most of the details from them. And that ain't going to cut it for college classes. You've got to actually have some idea. So when I actually do want to learn something really specific from a book, I have some strategies that I use, and I've broken them down so that I will go over them over the course of this week. So I'm going to start with sort of my first point of reading. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is know what your goals are for the reading. So, are you trying to learn specific pieces of terminology? Are you trying to get an overall sense of what it is? Are you going to be quizzed on this later? Or is it going to be open book later? You read differently depending as to whether you need to know the information or reference the information. And I think that's really important. So, when I do most of my reading, I know I can reference the information, but if I am reading so that I need to memorize it and recall it later, I will do it in a different manner. So, make sure you know what the goal is and how much of it you have to accomplish. So, how much reading do you need to do? And what is the goal for that piece of reading? For my students, reading is actually pretty obvious because I give them definitions. The goal is to know what those words mean by the end of the reading and maybe have a sense of how they work together. So, that's most of what I go for as main points, which actually brings me to the next part, which is the next thing you want to do is know what the key concepts of your reading are going to be. So you look through the entire reading passage, even if you're not going to read it all right away. So if it's a textbook chapter, for instance, you want to look over the entire chapter. You want to get a sense of what the headings are in the chapter. You want to get a sense of what the figures are going to be. You want to get a sense of what the goals are. So if they have those little boxes of what's the objective for this section, definitely check that out. Have a sense of how long it is and how well it's broken up, because you're going to want to break it into sections when you actually deal with it. And then the real next key for getting started on reading something like this is to actually create an outline before you've ever read using those things. You want to make an open-ended kind of outline. If you like to type, this is easy. If you like to write, you got to leave yourself various kinds of spaces, but it doesn't have to be perfect the first time because your first outline is mostly a reference point. But I would write down, for instance, the title. I would write down titles of any sections, again, with space between them if you need to. I would put the page numbers of those sections. And if anything has figures, I would also put in the figures that go along with it. If you really want to get ahead of learning terms while you're reading, as you're going in each section, scan through and also write down the bold words so that you're ready to define them. But give yourself still extra space for more things, because there's always concepts beyond the words that you need to be interested in. So if you actually start off your reading by going through it, having a sense of what you have, and having an outline waiting and ready for you to start to fill in, that is really the best way to pick up information from reading. You're not going to get it the first time, so your brain needs to already be pre-prepared for what's coming. And you need to be pre-prepared to put it into spots. If you have to suddenly start writing things down randomly, it's not going to work as effectively. So those are my suggestions for that. I will actually probably turn this whole week of reading tips into some kind of document if I'm real good and provide that. Maybe I'll start it today and make it a living Google Doc. Those are my favorite kind. Cool. So that's my starting point on reading. By the end of this week, well, by Thursday. So I'm going to do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I have other things that happen on Friday, so it kind of messes up my system. Then I'll be there for that. Okay. So that is my study tip for the day. And as I was doing last week, I also want to talk about something up to date and scientific. about COVID-19 because I think it's important that we talk about the science of this stuff and what's actually out there versus what you might be running into and reading and stuff like that. For those who are interested, I think I've talked about this before, but I read a fabulous article in the New York Times that breaks down all of the likelihood of picking up the virus in random places and on random things and stuff like that. And if you are trying to feel better about it, which is what I've been telling people anyway, because I'm a microbiologist, I kind of know how easy and not easy it is to pick things up. That's a great article because it makes it pretty clear that you're mostly not going to get this virus randomly by things other people have touched, or even really by being near somebody for like a couple seconds or something. Walking outside is going to be fine. There are so many things that are fine. Just don't get into really tight confined spaces with people. Okay, but that's not actually my topic for today. My topic for today reference is a correspondence article. So this is not a data-based article. It is correspondence, which we've mentioned before, means somebody writes about it. But I like this because it's bringing in data that I have read multiple times. So one of the keys, of course, with science is that things have to be repeated and repetitive for us to imagine that they are not just by chance. So if things happen once or twice, it could be by chance. That's why we don't like anecdotal evidence, because once or twice doesn't tell us if something is a pattern. It just tells us maybe it happened. But I've seen this pattern now multiple times, so I want to bring it to people's attention because I actually think it's something we should be promoting more, which is that there seems to be a fairly high amount. It's a little hard to nail a percentage of smell and taste issues in people who end up diagnosed with COVID-19. And they happen very, very, very early on, like before people have other symptoms. Their sense of smell and their sense of taste seem to just kind of disappear, and actually to a point where people are noticing it and reporting it to people, which I think is kind of neat. So this might actually be a really key diagnostic criteria that we're not talking enough about to the general public. And I know I don't want to worry people that, oh my God, I can't smell in something. The keys to this, according to the article, which I will link, are that it's acute, so it happens very, very suddenly, like you could taste this morning and now you can't, kind of thing. So that's one of the things. And that COVID-19 does not typically, very, very small percentage, come with inflammation of this area. It's not an upper respiratory bug. It does not really affect the upper respiratory cells. So you don't have a stuffy nose, but you lose your sense of smell. That's a key little chip. That's a little bit different than people are expecting. The same with sense of taste. And I think if we could let people know that those are early symptoms, that would tell people that they would have to be more careful under those circumstances versus others, since we're not doing a very good job of testing people and knowing what's going on. So it might be easier or harder for other people to figure those out. I know that my sense of smell and taste are both to begin with, which is how come I'm a microbiologist, because if you can stick your nose in the E. coli freezer or fridge without it bothering you or even you noticing it, you're clearly cut out to be a microbiologist. Everything stinks in microbiology. So I may or may not notice something instantly, but I know the people who have much tighter versions and they would notice very quickly. So it could be a very useful thing, and it could come from something else, but at least then you have a starting point to say, hey, maybe we should watch this. And this seems to happen even before temperatures increase. So we're doing temperature checks, but we're not doing smell checks. That's what we should do. Smell checks. That's hard to do though. I don't know how you'd figure that out, but I like the idea. So since this is I don't even know how many times I've come across this now, at least 5 or 6 separate times in different places. And this person is kind of combining all of them together and saying, hey, hi, this is definitely a thing. I think it's also interesting that they note that since it doesn't actually seem to be killing the cells of the upper respiratory system, that it's possibly actually going right for the olfactory nerves, which is kind of interesting. These little viruses like nerves, which is funky. But we've already seen that too. Maybe I'll make that topic for tomorrow because I read some articles on that previously. Anyway, sense of smell and taste as early diagnostics. It certainly can't hurt you to be aware of that, while you are also not worrying about stripping your clothes and showering after you come back from shopping. You don't need to do that, I promise. Or going jogging. You can go jogging. It's fine. But if you suddenly can't taste spicy food, you should probably tell somebody, because it would be great to catch that early on. Many of those people don't even end up with the high-end symptoms. They can stay mostly asymptomatic, but we're trying to catch, track, and follow. So that's the key. All right, so that's my article for the day and my reading stuff. I will leave those links once I upload.